The conference room smelled of cinnamon and champagne, that particular blend of forced festivity that happens when corporations try to manufacture Christmas spirit. I stood near the dessert table, smoothing down my emerald dress for the 3rd time in 10 minutes, checking my phone for the 4th. Nothing. Adrian was supposed to meet me here 40 minutes ago. The company Christmas dinner was already in full swing around me, laughter and conversation creating a wall of sound that made my isolation feel even more pronounced. I was Lorenzo Volkov's executive secretary, which meant I knew everyone here professionally, but socially? I was an island. My fingers tightened around my phone as I typed another message. Where are you? Everyone's asking about you. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. My stomach twisted with a premonition I'd been ignoring for months. I can't make it. Something came up with work. Sorry, Isa. Something came up with work. On Christmas Eve. The lie was so transparent it was almost insulting. I stared at those words, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. Not yet. Clarity. I opened my messages, scrolling back through weeks of similar excuses, late meetings, client emergencies, traffic. Each one a perfectly crafted lie that I'd accepted because questioning them felt exhausting, because I'd wanted to believe in us. My thumb hovered over his contact photo. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I opened the location sharing app we'd set up for safety. Adrian's little blue dot pulsed on the screen, bright and damning. Not at his office, not stuck in traffic. At an apartment building across town, one I'd never heard him mention before. The realization didn't crash over me like a wave. It seeped in slowly, poisonously. How long had I been the fool? How many times had I defended him to my friends when they said he seemed distant? How many nights had I fallen asleep alone, trusting his excuses? Isabella, you look stunning tonight. The voice behind me was deep, accented with something Eastern European that he'd never quite lost, despite 2 decades in America. I turned to find Lorenzo Volkov standing closer than professional distance required, a glass of scotch in his hand, his dark eyes taking in my expression with unsettling perceptiveness. Mr. Volkov. I straightened my spine automatically, slipping my phone into my clutch with practiced ease. The venue exceeded expectations. Your choice of caterer was excellent. Lorenzo, he corrected, as he always did at these events. We're not in the office, Isabella, and you're deflecting. A smile tried to crack through my carefully maintained expression, but I held it back. Lorenzo Volkov wasn't just my boss. He was the most dangerous man in the city, though his legitimate businesses provided perfect cover for the empire beneath. In 3 years as his secretary, I'd learned to read him better than anyone, to anticipate his needs, to navigate the treacherous waters between his legal operations and the shadows where his real power lived. I'm fine, I said, the lie tasting bitter. Just wondering where the waiters disappeared to. The champagne table is running low. His eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't believe me, but he was too controlled to push. Instead, he gestured toward the windows where snow had begun to fall, coating the city in white. Step outside with me. You look like you need air. It wasn't really a suggestion, not from a man like Lorenzo. But there was something in his tone that wasn't commanding, more concerned than controlling. I should stay visible, I said. As your secretary, people expect you to do whatever I ask, he interrupted, his voice quiet but carrying an edge of steel that made my pulse quicken. Not from fear, but from something more complicated. And right now, I'm asking you to take a break. I followed him through the crowd, feeling eyes tracking our movement. Lorenzo Volkov didn't pay personal attention to his employees. He was courteous, fair in his own ruthless way, but distant. Seeing him escort me toward the balcony would start rumors I'd have to manage on Monday, if I still had a job on Monday. If I didn't do something monumentally stupid tonight, like break down in front of my terrifyingly perceptive boss. The balcony was empty, thank God. The cold December air hit my bare shoulders like a slap, but I welcomed it. Reality. Clarity. The physical discomfort was easier to process than the emotional numbness spreading through my chest. Your husband didn't show, Lorenzo observed, leaning against the railing in his perfectly tailored suit. Not a question. A statement. Adrian had a work emergency. The lie came automatically, well practiced. Isabella. My name in his mouth sounded different than when Adrian said it. Richer, darker, weighted with something I couldn't quite identify. How long have we worked together? 3 years, 4 months, 12 days. The precision was automatic. I'd kept track for reasons I'd never examined too closely. In that time, I've watched you anticipate my needs before I voice them. You've negotiated deals that would have ended in bloodshed if handled by someone less intelligent. You've stood between me and federal investigators with such perfect composure, they left questioning their own evidence. He turned to face me fully, his dark eyes catching the light from the ballroom. So don't insult my intelligence by pretending you believe your husband's excuse. The truth clawed its way up my throat. He's with someone else. I know. My head snapped toward him. What? I've known for 6 weeks. Lorenzo's expression remained neutral, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I had Mikhail run a background check when I noticed you were distracted, losing focus. You're never distracted, Isabella. It concerned me. Anger flared, hot and sudden. You had no right. I have every right to know if something is affecting my secretary's performance. His voice was calm, implacable. What I discovered was that Adrienne Delacroix has been seeing Vivienne Marchetti for approximately 4 months. She works in marketing at his firm. They meet Tuesday and Thursday evenings. The nights he tells you he has late meetings. The specificity of it, the cold recitation of facts, somehow made it worse and better simultaneously. Worse because it was real, documented, undeniable. Better because I wasn't crazy for suspecting. Why didn't you tell me? My voice came out steadier than I expected. Because you're not the type of woman who wants to be saved. Lorenzo moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and smoky. You're the type who needs to discover the truth herself, make her own decisions, choose her own path. I was simply waiting for you to realize what I already knew. And what's that? I challenged, meeting his gaze despite the tears threatening to spill. That you deserve better than a man too blind to see what he has. Lorenzo's hand came up slowly, giving me time to move away. When I didn't, his thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped down my cheek. And that you're too strong to break over something like this, even if it hurts like hell right now. The gentleness in that gesture, from a man known for breaking bones and destroying empires, nearly undid me. I stepped back quickly, wrapping my arms around myself against the cold and the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. I need to go, I said abruptly. I can't be here right now. I can't smile and make small talk and pretend everything is fine. Then don't. Lorenzo straightened. All business again. Mikhail is waiting by the east exit. He'll drive you wherever you want to go. I don't need... Isabella. My name again, that same dark weight. It's snowing. You're upset. You're not driving yourself anywhere tonight. That's not a suggestion. For once, I didn't have the energy to argue. I nodded, grabbed my coat from the check room, and slipped out the east exit where Mikhail waited beside a black SUV, his face carefully neutral as he held the door. Where to, Ms. Sinclair? He asked once I was settled in the back seat. I gave him my home address, then changed my mind. I couldn't go back to the apartment Adrian and I shared. Not yet. Not while he was probably still with her. Actually, just drive. Anywhere. I need to think. Mikhail nodded and pulled into traffic. The city lights blurred past, Christmas decorations and holiday shoppers creating a world that felt disconnected from my reality. My phone buzzed with a message from Adrian. How's the party? I'll try to make it home early. The casual lie, the assumption that I'd believe him, ignited something fierce in my chest. I typed back, I know about Vivienne. Don't bother coming home. Then I turned off my phone and watched the city disappear behind us, feeling something like freedom mixed with devastation. Mikhail eventually dropped me at a small park near the river, one of those forgotten green spaces that the city maintained, but few people visited after dark. I'd asked him to leave me there, ignoring his protests that it wasn't safe, that Mr. Volkov would be displeased. Tell Lorenzo I needed space, I'd said, climbing out before he could argue further. I'll call a cab when I'm ready. Now I sat on a bench dusted with snow, my designer coat inadequate against the December cold, staring at the dark water and wondering how my carefully constructed life had unraveled so completely in a single evening. My phone, which I'd turned back on against my better judgment, buzzed incessantly. Adrian calling, texting. The messages progressing from denial to anger to desperate apology in the span of 20 minutes. You're going through my phone now? That's a violation of privacy, Issa. Fine. Yes, I'm seeing Vivian, but it's not what you think. Baby, please, can we talk about this? I made a mistake. You're being dramatic. Nothing actually happened. The gaslighting was almost impressive in its speed. I read each message with a detached clarity I hadn't possessed hours ago, seeing the manipulation for what it was. Everything about our marriage happened, Adrian. I typed back. And now it's over. I'll have papers drawn up after the holidays. Don't contact me again. I blocked his number before I could second-guess myself, then blocked Vivian's too, when she had the audacity to message me with some nonsense about not meaning for things to happen this way. The snow fell harder, coating my hair and shoulders. I should have been cold, should have called that cab, should have gone somewhere warm. Instead, I sat frozen, watching my breath cloud in the air and feeling oddly peaceful. You're going to catch pneumonia. I didn't startle at Lorenzo's voice. Some part of me had known he would come, had perhaps been waiting for it. How did you find me? I asked, not turning around. Mikhail called the moment you dismissed him. Lorenzo moved into my peripheral vision, then sat beside me on the bench, close enough for warmth, but not touching. Said you looked like you were about to do something either very brave or very stupid. And you came to determine which? I came because you're my secretary, and I have a vested interest in your continued well-being. A pause. And because you looked destroyed when you left that party. And I don't like seeing you destroyed. The honesty in that admission made something crack in my chest. I'm fine. You're sitting on a park bench in a snowstorm in a cocktail dress after discovering your husband's affair. You're many things, Isabella, but fine isn't one of them. A laugh bubbled up, surprising us both. You know what the stupidest part is? I'm not even sure I love him anymore. Haven't for months. Maybe longer. But the betrayal still hurts. The humiliation of being the last to know. You weren't the last to know, Lorenzo said quietly. You were the first to act on knowing. There's a difference. I finally turned to look at him. In the dim park lighting, Lorenzo Volkov looked less like a feared Mafia boss and more like a man. His dark hair had snow melting in it. His expensive suit was getting ruined. But he sat with perfect stillness, giving me his complete attention. Why are you here, Lorenzo? Really? Because 3 years ago I hired a secretary and gained a weapon I didn't know I needed. His eyes held mine. You're the smartest person in any room we enter. You see patterns I miss. You negotiate with a ruthlessness that impresses even me. And you do it all while maintaining a moral code I stopped believing in years ago. I work for you, I pointed out. I'm not exactly operating from a moral high ground. You work for my legitimate businesses. You've never once crossed a line you weren't comfortable with. I've made sure of that. Lorenzo shifted slightly, angling toward me. You think I don't notice how you leave the room when certain conversations start? How you've created a perfect system where you handle everything legal and Mikhail handles everything else. You're brilliant at maintaining distance from what you can't accept. The observation was too accurate, too perceptive, and you allow it. Why? Because losing you would be inconvenient. A slight smile. And because I respect that you know where your boundaries are and defend them absolutely. Even when it must frustrate you? Especially then. Lorenzo's expression grew serious. Isabella, I'm going to tell you something that will either comfort you or terrify you. When I discovered your husband's affair, my first instinct was to have him dealt with. Permanently. My breath caught. Lorenzo. I didn't, he continued calmly. Because you would never forgive me for it. Would probably turn me into the authorities yourself, moral code intact. So instead, I've been monitoring the situation, waiting for you to discover it naturally, ready to step in if you needed me. That's not comforting. That's terrifying. I know. He reached over, taking my frozen hand in his warm one. The gesture was shockingly intimate, more so because Lorenzo Volkov didn't do casual touch. But it's honest. And right now, I think you need honesty more than comfort. I should have pulled my hand away, should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I found myself gripping his hand like a lifeline. What happens now? Now you make a choice. Lorenzo's thumb traced small circles on my palm, a soothing gesture at odds with the intensity of his gaze. You can go home, fight with Adrian, go through the exhausting process of divorce while living in the same space. Or you can let me help you. Help me how? I own a building in the financial district, luxury apartments. There's a vacant unit on the 20th floor with a view of the entire city. It's yours, no strings attached, for as long as you need it. Your belongings will be moved there tomorrow while Adrian is at work. Divorce papers will be drawn up by the best lawyer in the city, free of charge. Within a week, this will be handled. The offer was too much, too fast. Lorenzo, I can't accept. You can, and you will. His hand tightened on mine. Because you're too valuable to me to have distracted by a failing marriage and a mediocre man. Because you deserve better than fighting over furniture and photograph albums, and because I take care of what's mine. I'm not yours, I said automatically, but the protest sounded weak even to my own ears. Aren't you? Lorenzo's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. You've spent 3 years at my side, Isabella. You know my schedule better than I do. You've seen me at my worst and never flinched. You've defended me, protected me, made me better at what I do. If that's not belonging, what is? The truth of it settled over me like the falling snow. Somewhere in 3 years of working together, I'd stopped being just his secretary. I'd become something more. Something I'd been too married and too scared to examine. This is too fast, I whispered. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. Lorenzo stood, pulling me up with him. But take it somewhere warm. Come on, I'm driving you to the apartment tonight. You can decide in the morning if you want to stay there or make other arrangements. And if I choose other arrangements? Then I'll help with those too. He led me toward where his car waited, Mikhail at the wheel. But, Isabella, you're not going back to Adrian tonight. That's non-negotiable. For once, I was grateful for his absolute certainty. Because my own certainty had shattered somewhere between discovering the affair and sitting in a snowstorm, and I needed someone to make decisions while I put myself back together. The apartment was everything Lorenzo had promised. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furnishings, a bedroom bigger than the living room Adrian and I had shared. Lorenzo gave me a brief tour, showed me where everything was, then paused at the door. There's food in the kitchen, clothes in your size in the closet, everything you need. He pulled a keycard from his pocket and held it out. This building has the best security in the city. No one gets up to this floor without clearance. You're safe here. I took the keycard, our fingers brushing. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. A flash of something dark in his eyes. We both know this complicates everything between us. Does it have to? Probably. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. But I've never been good at staying away from things I want, and I've wanted you for longer than I should admit. The confession hung between us, electric and dangerous. I should have been shocked, should have stepped back, should have reminded him that I was still married and he was still my boss. Instead, I heard myself say, "How long?" Long enough to know I shouldn't act on it. Lorenzo's hand came up, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. Long enough to know I probably will anyway, eventually. But not tonight. Tonight you need space and time and distance from men making demands on you. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, chaste and devastating, then left before I could respond. I stood in the quiet apartment, my hand pressed to where his lips had been, and felt the foundation of my carefully ordered world shift irrevocably beneath my feet. I woke in the unfamiliar bed to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I was disoriented, expecting to see Adrian's sleeping form beside me. Then yesterday crashed back with brutal clarity. The affair. The party. Lorenzo. I padded into the kitchen to find a coffee maker set to automatic, a fresh pot waiting, and a note in bold handwriting. Mikhail will pick you up at noon if you want to retrieve personal items from your apartment. If you prefer to avoid Adrian, give him a list and he'll handle it. Your choice. L. Your choice. Those two words seemed to be Lorenzo's constant refrain, which was ironic considering how little choice he'd given me about staying here last night. But he was right, I acknowledged as I poured coffee into an expensive mug. Going back to Adrian's apartment would be exhausting and emotional. Two things I couldn't afford to be today. My phone, which I'd finally plugged in, showed 47 missed calls from Adrian and 19 text messages that progressively devolved from apologetic to angry to desperate. I blocked his number again, deleted the messages unread, and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I was still in my emerald dress from last night, wrinkled and smelling faintly of snow and expensive cologne. The closet Lorenzo mentioned revealed an array of clothing in my exact size, casual and professional, all high-end brands I'd admired, but never bought. Someone had been paying very close attention to my preferences. After a shower in a bathroom that could have fit my and Adrian's entire bedroom, I dressed in dark jeans and a cashmere sweater the color of cream, then made a list of items I wanted from the apartment. Books, mostly. My grandmother's jewelry, a few photographs from before Adrian, when I'd still had friends and hobbies, and a life that didn't revolve around managing someone else's needs. At precisely noon, my phone rang. Ms. Sinclair, Mikhail's gravelly voice. I'm downstairs whenever you're ready. Actually, I have a list. Would you mind? Already anticipated. Mr. Volkov said you'd prefer not to see your husband. I'll handle the retrieval personally. I should have been unsettled by how well Lorenzo predicted my decisions. Instead, I felt oddly cared for, a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. Thank you, Mikhail. I'll send you the list. One more thing, he said. Mr. Volkov would like you to join him for lunch at Rossellino's. 1 o'clock. He says to tell you it's not optional, but also not business. My heart did something complicated in my chest. Rossellino's was the best Italian restaurant in the city, intimate and exclusive. Not a place you took your secretary for professional meetings. Tell him I'll be there. I arrived at Rossellino's 15 minutes early, a habit from years of managing Lorenzo's schedule, only to find him already seated at a corner table, 2 glasses of wine waiting. You're early, I observed, sliding into the chair across from him. So are you. Lorenzo looked different in daylight, less intimidating somehow, though no less powerful. He wore a charcoal sweater instead of a suit, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it. How did you sleep? Better than expected. I picked up the wine glass, grateful for something to do with my hands. The apartment is beautiful. Too beautiful. Lorenzo, I can't accept. We're not having that conversation again. He cut me off smoothly. The apartment is yours. Consider it part of your compensation package if it makes you feel better. That's not how compensation packages work. It is when you're indispensable to a man who doesn't know how to express appreciation without overwhelming gestures. A slight smile played at his lips. I'm not good at subtlety, Isabella. You know this. You're the most subtle person I've ever met, I countered. You've built an empire on misdirection and strategic patience. In business, yes. In personal matters? He shook his head. I'm direct to the point of brutality, which is why I need to tell you something before we continue this, whatever this is. My stomach tightened. That sounds ominous. It's honest. Lorenzo set down his wine glass, giving me his complete attention in that way he had that made you feel like the only person in the world. Last night, I told you I've wanted you for longer than I should admit. That was true. But I need you to understand what wanting means in my world. Lorenzo, let me finish. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm not a good man, Isabella. You know enough about my operations to understand that. I've hurt people, destroyed lives, made decisions that would horrify you if you knew the details. I keep you separate from that darkness because you deserve better. But that darkness is part of who I am. I know what you are, I said quietly. I've always known. Knowing intellectually and experiencing directly are very different things. He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. If we cross this line, if we become more than boss and secretary, that separation I've maintained will collapse. You'll see things you can't unsee. Know things that will implicate you. Be associated with me in ways that put you at risk. Are you trying to scare me away? I'm trying to give you an out. Lorenzo's hand reached across the table, stopping just short of touching mine. Because once you're mine, Isabella, I won't let you go. I'm not built for casual. I don't share. And I protect what's mine with extreme prejudice. The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent heat spiraling through my chest. That's remarkably presumptuous. It's honest, he repeated. You deserve to know what you'd be getting into. Because I can offer you luxury, protection, complete devotion. But I can't offer you normal. Can't give you a simple life with a man who comes home at 5 and takes you to dinner parties where the biggest scandal is someone's affair. I just left that life, I pointed out. It wasn't as appealing as advertised. Your husband was an idiot. Lorenzo's expression hardened. He had everything I've wanted for 3 years and threw it away for someone ordinary. But I'm not offering to be your rebound, Isabella. I'm not interested in being a distraction from your pain. And what are you offering? He was quiet for a long moment, as if weighing his words carefully. Time, space, friendship, if you want it, and the promise that when you're ready, if you decide you want more, I'll be waiting. The server chose that moment to appear, taking our orders with practiced efficiency. After he left, I studied Lorenzo across the table, seeing him with new clarity. Can I ask you something? I said finally. Anything. Why me? You could have anyone. Women who fit your world, who understand the darkness you're talking about. Why fixate on your secretary? Because you're brilliant. The answer came without hesitation. Because you challenge me in ways no one else dares. Because you're moral in a world where I've forgotten what that means, and being near you reminds me that not everything has to be corrupt. He paused. And because every day for 3 years, you've walked into my office, met my eyes, and never once looked afraid. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How addictive? I'm not fearless, I admitted. I'm just good at hiding it. Then we have that in common. Lorenzo's smile was self-deprecating. I've spent 3 years terrified you'd quit, find another job, disappear from my life. It's why I pay you twice what any other secretary in the city makes. Why I give you holidays off and never question your hours. Why I've maintained professional distance even when every instinct screamed to cross it. And now? Now, the distance feels impossible to maintain. But I'll try, for your sake, until you tell me otherwise. He finally closed that last inch, his fingers brushing mine on the table. I need you to understand something, Isabella. This isn't about Adrian leaving. Isn't about you being vulnerable or needing rescue. This is about 3 years of wanting something I thought I couldn't have, and suddenly realizing maybe I can. The lunch passed in a blur of conversation that felt both familiar and entirely new. We talked about everything except work, Adrian, the complications we were dancing around. Lorenzo told me about growing up in Moscow, immigrating at 16, building his empire from nothing through a combination of intelligence and ruthlessness. I told him about my childhood in the suburbs, my parents' disappointment when I chose secretarial work over law school, my slow realization that I was better at seeing patterns and managing chaos than I'd ever be at arguing cases. You would have made an excellent lawyer, Lorenzo observed, but you make a better strategist. Law is about rules. Strategy is about seeing 3 moves ahead and anticipating every variable. Is that what you do? See 3 moves ahead? In business, always. In personal matters? He shook his head ruefully. With you, I'm lucky if I can predict the next 5 minutes. We were lingering over espresso when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I know you're with him. This isn't over, Issa. We need to talk. Adrian, from a new number I hadn't blocked yet. Lorenzo saw my expression change. What is it? I showed him the message. His face went cold in a way that reminded me exactly who I was sitting across from. "Give me your phone." "Lorenzo." "Isabella, your phone." I handed it over, watching as he typed rapidly, then blocked the new number. "What did you say to him?" "That you're under my protection now, and any further contact will be considered harassment. That divorce papers will be served next week, and that if he's smart, he'll sign them without contest. You can't just..." "I can, and I did." Lorenzo handed back my phone. "That man had his chance with you. He doesn't get another one." I should have been angry at his high-handedness, should have asserted my independence, insisted I could handle Adrian myself. But the truth was, I was tired of handling things alone, and there was something deeply appealing about letting Lorenzo's certainty carry me, just for a little while. "Thank you," I said instead. "Don't thank me. This is me being selfish." Lorenzo signaled for the check. "Adrian is a loose end. I don't like loose ends, and I particularly don't like loose ends that text you during lunch when you're supposed to be relaxing." "Possessive much?" "Intensely." No apology in his voice. "I told you I don't share. That includes your attention." As we left the restaurant, Lorenzo's hand found the small of my back, a gesture that was becoming familiar. Outside, snow had started falling again, coating the city in fresh white. "I need to go back to the office," Lorenzo said, "but Mikhail has your things from the apartment. And Isabella? Take the rest of the day. Rest. Process. Do whatever you need to do." "What if what I need is to work?" I challenged. "To have some normalcy while my life is imploding." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Then come to the office tomorrow. Your desk will be waiting. But tonight, I want you to take care of yourself." "And if I don't know how to do that?" Something softened in his expression. "Then call me. I'll come over and we'll figure it out together." He left me on the sidewalk with Mikhail, who drove me back to the apartment in silence. Only when we arrived did he speak. "Mr. Volkov is a good man, Ms. Sinclair, despite what you might think you know about him." "I know what he is, Mikhail." "Do you?" The big Russian turned to look at me directly. "Because what he is, at his core, is loyal. Once he decides something or someone is his, he'll burn the world down before letting harm come to them." That's not exactly comforting. "It's not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to be true." Mikhail's expression was serious. "You're his, Ms. Sinclair. Have been since the day you walked into his office and reorganized his entire filing system without asking permission. The question is whether you're ready to be." I had no answer to that. Just a growing certainty that my carefully ordered life was never going to be the same. I went back to work the next morning, despite Lorenzo's insistence that I take more time. Not because I was ready, but because the apartment, beautiful as it was, felt too quiet. Too much space for my thoughts to spiral. Nicolette Belmont, Lorenzo's other secretary, the one who handled the appointments I wasn't privy to, gave me a knowing look when I arrived. "Heard you had an eventful weekend," she said, her French accent more pronounced than usual. "The whole office is buzzing." "Let them buzz." I settled at my desk, pulling up Lorenzo's calendar for the week. "Is he in yet?" "Meeting with the Constantine brothers. Should be done by 9. She perched on the edge of my desk, her designer heels dangling. "Isabella, can I give you some advice? Do I have a choice?" "Non." A slight smile. "Lorenzo Volkov is many things. Dangerous, ruthless, brilliant. But he's also honorable in his way. If he's claimed you, and trust me, everyone knows he has, then you're the safest person in this building. I don't need..." "Yes, you do." Nicolette's expression grew serious. "Your husband made calls yesterday, to this office, demanding to speak to you." Lorenzo had Mikhail handle it, but there was unpleasantness. Adrian threatened to go to the press with stories about Lorenzo's operations if you weren't returned to him. Ice flooded my veins. He what? "He's desperate. Stupid." She shrugged. "The combination is dangerous. But Lorenzo has people watching Adrian now, making sure he understands the consequences of further threats." "People watching him," I repeated slowly. "What kind of consequences?" "The kind Lorenzo is good at. Nicolette slid off my desk. My point is, you're protected. But you should know what protection in this world costs. She left before I could ask what she meant, leaving me staring at my computer screen and wondering exactly what I'd gotten myself into. Lorenzo emerged from his office at 9:15, flanked by two men who looked like they could bench press small cars. The Constantine brothers, presumably. They nodded respectfully at me as they passed, which was somehow more unnerving than if they'd ignored me. Isabella. Lorenzo stopped at my desk, his expression neutral, but his eyes warm. Good morning. I thought you were taking the day. I work here, I pointed out. Taking random days off seems counterproductive. Even when your personal life is exploding. Especially then. Work is the one thing that makes sense right now. I pulled up a document. You have a conference call with the Tokyo office at 11. The contracts for the waterfront property need your signature, and the Belmonts want to reschedule dinner from Thursday to Friday. Lorenzo studied me for a long moment. Come into my office. It wasn't a request. I followed him into the spacious corner office with its view of the entire city, watching as he closed the door and leaned against his desk. You're compartmentalizing, he observed. I'm coping. By pretending nothing happened. By focusing on what I can control. I crossed my arms defensively. Is that a problem? No. He moved closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. But I need you to understand that your husband's threats yesterday have complicated things. Nicolette mentioned, you have people watching him. I have people ensuring he doesn't become a bigger problem than he already is. Lorenzo's voice was carefully neutral. Adrian is making noise about going to the press, about exposing details of my business he thinks he knows. He doesn't know anything, I said immediately. I never discussed your work with him. I know you didn't. But perception is powerful, and even unfounded accusations can cause damage. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Which is why I need you to let me handle this, Isabella. Don't contact him. Don't respond to messages. Let me protect you. I don't need... Yes, you do. His voice was firm. Because this isn't just about your feelings anymore. This is about my business, my reputation, my operations. Adrian has made himself my problem, which means I get to solve it my way. Fear flickered through me. What are you going to do to him? Nothing permanent, nothing violent unless he forces my hand. Lorenzo's eyes were dark, unreadable, but he will sign those divorce papers. He will stop calling you, and he will learn that threatening what's mine has consequences. I'm not yours, I said automatically, but the protest was weak. Aren't you? He stepped closer, eliminating the space between us. You're living in my apartment, under my protection, working at my side. Tell me, Isabella, at what point do you stop fighting the inevitable? When I'm ready. I held my ground, refusing to be intimidated. You said you'd give me time, space, that you'd wait until I was ready. I did. I am. His hands came to rest on my waist, not pulling me closer but anchoring me in place. But ready and in denial are different things. You can take all the time you need to process the end of your marriage, to grieve what you thought you had. But don't pretend you don't feel this between us. This tension, this pull, the way you've been hyper-aware of me since you walked in this morning, the way I can't focus on anything when you're in the room. His voice dropped lower. I've been patient for 3 years, Isabella. I can be patient a while longer. But don't ask me to pretend I don't want you because I'm not that good a liar. My breath caught. Lorenzo, I'm not asking you for anything, he continued, his grip on my waist tightening slightly. I'm just making sure you understand where I stand. When you're ready, if you decide you want this, want me, I'm here. Until then, I'll wait. I'll protect you. I'll handle Adrian and any other problems that arise. Because that's what I do for what's mine. And if I'm never ready? I challenged, even as my body betrayed me by leaning into his touch. Then I'll have spent the rest of my life wanting the one thing I couldn't have. A slight smile, sad and self-aware. Wouldn't be the worst fate for a man like me. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Lorenzo released me, stepping back with obvious reluctance. Come in. Mikhail entered, his expression grave. Boss, we have a situation. What kind of situation? Adrienne Delacroix filed a police report claiming Ms. Sinclair was taken against her will. 2 detectives are in the lobby wanting to speak with her. My stomach dropped. He did what? The idiot is desperate. Lorenzo's voice was ice cold. Fine, send them up. Isabella, you're going to tell them exactly what happened. That you left your husband voluntarily. That you're staying in an apartment I provided as part of your employment compensation. That there was no coercion, no kidnapping, no impropriety of any kind. That's all true, I said. I know. But they're going to question you separately, try to catch inconsistencies, look for signs of duress. So stay calm, be honest, and remember that you chose this. The detectives were professional but skeptical. They separated us, questioning me in a conference room while Lorenzo waited in his office. I answered every question truthfully, explaining about discovering Adrienne's affair, about leaving the party, about Lorenzo offering me a place to stay while I sorted out my divorce. And Mr. Volkov has been appropriate? The older detective, a woman with sharp eyes, asked carefully. Completely. He's been nothing but supportive and professional. That's not what your husband claims. He says Mr. Volkov has a history of acquiring things he wants through intimidation. My husband is a liar who's angry I left him, I said flatly. Lorenzo offered me help when I needed it. Nothing more, nothing less. They questioned me for another 30 minutes before finally seeming satisfied. As they left, the female detective handed me her card. If you ever feel unsafe, if anything changes, call me directly. I'm safe, I assured her. Safer than I was in my marriage, certainly. After they left, I found Lorenzo in his office, staring out at the city. They're satisfied, I reported. Adrienne's claim will be dismissed. Good. He didn't turn around. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Not your fault. Adrienne's grasping at straws. It's my fault for not handling him more decisively earlier. Lorenzo's voice was hard. I tried to let him be, let you handle your divorce without interference. Clearly that was a mistake. Lorenzo. Don't. He filed a false police report, Isabella. Tried to have me investigated. Attempted to implicate you in imaginary crimes. He finally turned, his expression dark. This ends now. What are you going to do? What I should have done the moment he hurt you. Lorenzo moved toward me with purpose. I'm going to make Adrienne Delacroix understand exactly what happens when you threaten what belongs to me. I don't belong. He kissed me. Not gently, not tentatively, but with 3 years of pent-up want and frustration and possession. His hands cupped my face, holding me in place as he took my mouth with an intensity that stole my breath. I should have pushed him away. Should have reminded him I was still married, still processing, still not ready. Instead, I kissed him back, 3 years of my own denial shattering like glass. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. You were saying? He asked, his voice rough, that this is a terrible idea. Probably. His thumb traced my swollen lips. Are you going to stop me? I should have said yes. Should have stepped back, reinstated professional boundaries, protected myself from whatever this was becoming. Instead, I heard myself whisper, no. Lorenzo's smile was triumphant and tender all at once. Good, because I'm done pretending, Isabella. Done keeping my distance. Done letting lesser men make decisions about your life. I make decisions about my life, I countered. Then decide. He kissed me again, softer this time. Decide if you want this. Want me. Because once you say yes, there's no going back. I don't do casual. Don't do halfway. If you're mine completely. The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it ignited something fierce in my chest. And if I want to be completely yours, then we stop fighting the inevitable and see where this goes. His hands slid down to my waist, pulling me flush against him. But I need to hear you say it, Isabella. Need to know you're choosing this with full knowledge of what it means. I looked up at this dangerous, complicated man who'd somehow become essential to my life. I choose this. I choose you. Thank God, he breathed, and kissed me like I was air and he'd been drowning. The next few weeks passed in a blur of intensity I hadn't known existed. Lorenzo wasn't exaggerating when he said he didn't do halfway. He was all-consuming, showing up at the apartment at odd hours, taking me to dinner at exclusive restaurants, introducing me to his world in carefully measured doses. The divorce papers were served to Adrian by Friday. He contested them, of course, demanding alimony and half my savings, despite the fact that I'd supported us for the last 2 years while he pursued his career. Lorenzo's lawyers demolished his claims within a week. It's remarkable, I told Lorenzo over dinner one evening, how quickly legal proceedings move when you have infinite resources. Resources help, he acknowledged, cutting into his steak. But in this case, the facts were on your side. Adrian had an affair, abandoned you, then tried to extort money you earned. No judge would side with him. Still, thank you. Stop thanking me. He reached across the table, taking my hand. You're mine now. Protecting you, providing for you, making your problems disappear. That's not a favor. It's what I do. Your possessiveness is showing again. I know. Does it bother you? I considered the question honestly. A month ago, the answer would have been yes. Now, after weeks of Lorenzo's constant attention, his unwavering focus, his absolute certainty that I belonged with him, I found it comforting rather than suffocating. No, I admitted, it doesn't. His smile was satisfied, predatory. Good, because it's only going to intensify. He wasn't wrong. Lorenzo's idea of dating involved private jets to weekend getaways, jewelry that cost more than my car, and a level of attention I'd never experienced. But it also involved quiet evenings in the apartment, where he'd show up with takeout, and we'd watch old movies. Morning phone calls just to hear my voice. Random texts throughout the day checking if I'd eaten, if I was tired, if I needed anything. You're incredibly controlling, I observed one morning when he'd had breakfast delivered to the apartment, despite my protests that I was capable of making my own coffee. I prefer attentive, he countered, stealing a strawberry from my plate. You had Mikhail follow me to lunch with my friend yesterday. For your protection. It's a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office, in a city where I have enemies who would love to use you against me. Lorenzo's expression grew serious. Isabella, I need you to understand something. My world isn't safe. The moment you became mine, you became a target. The surveillance, the security, the precautions, they're not optional. I'm not a prisoner. No, you're the most valuable thing I possess. There's a difference. He set down his coffee. I know this isn't what you signed up for, but it's the reality of being with me. And if I can't accept that reality, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Then we have a problem, because I won't risk you, Isabella, won't gamble with your safety. If that means restricting your freedom, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. What about the price I'm willing to pay? I challenged. Name it. He leaned forward, intense and focused. Tell me what you need, what boundaries you require, and I'll accommodate them. But your safety is non-negotiable. We stared at each other across the breakfast table, locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, I sighed. I need autonomy at work. No security in the office. Mikhail can wait in the lobby. Done. I need girls' nights without surveillance, time with friends without feeling watched. Mikhail will maintain distance but remain available. You wear the tracking device I gave you. That's a compromise. That's the best you're getting. No apology in his voice. Next. I need you to stop making decisions about my life without consulting me first. I'm your partner, not your property. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. That one's harder. I'm used to control, to making decisions unilaterally. But I'll try. For you, I'll try. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And I was learning that with Lorenzo, honesty was more valuable than easy promises. The real test came 2 weeks later, when Nicolette pulled me aside after a meeting. Adrian is making noise again, she said quietly. Talking to reporters about Lorenzo's inappropriate relationship with you, suggesting you were coerced. That's absurd. But perception matters. Lorenzo is handling it, but you should know there might be press attention." She was right. By the end of the day, my phone was flooded with calls from tabloid journalists wanting comments about my affair with my boss. Lorenzo's response was characteristically direct. "We're making a statement," he announced, walking into my office that evening. "Confirming our relationship, clarifying the timeline, and making it clear that anyone who continues to harass you will face legal consequences. A statement feels very public. You are public now. You're with me, which means you're visible." He sat on the edge of my desk. "I know this isn't what you wanted, but Adrian has forced our hand. We can either control the narrative or let him control it. And you choose control, always. No hesitation. Isabella, I need to know if you're ready for this. Once we go public, there's no taking it back. You'll be known as Lorenzo Volkov's woman. That comes with scrutiny, judgment, and danger." I thought about my quiet life a month ago. My modest apartment, my boring marriage, my carefully maintained anonymity. Then I thought about Lorenzo, his intensity, his protection, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. "I'm ready," I said. The statement went out that evening. Within hours, my face was on every gossip site, my background investigated, my life dissected. Some outlets portrayed me as a gold digger who'd seduced her boss. Others painted Lorenzo as a predator who'd taken advantage of a vulnerable employee. The truth, complex and nuanced, got lost in the speculation. "I'm sorry," Lorenzo said that night, holding me as we watched the coverage. "I know this is invasive. It's not your fault. It is, actually. I made you visible, made you mine. Consequences of that are on me." I turned in his arms to face him. "I chose this, Lorenzo. Chose you. Whatever comes with that, I can handle." "Can you?" His eyes searched mine. "Because this is just the beginning, Isabella. My world is complicated. Dark. You'll see things you can't unsee. Know things that implicate you. Once you're in this deep, there's no going back to normal. Then it's good I don't want normal." I kissed him, slow and deliberate. "I want you. All of you. Darkness included." "You say that now." "I mean it." I pulled back to meet his gaze directly. "I'm not naive, Lorenzo. I know what you do, what you're capable of, and I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you." Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. "Say that again. I choose you." He kissed me then, deep and claiming, his hands tangling in my hair as he demonstrated exactly what my choice meant to him. When we finally came up for air, he rested his forehead against mine. "You're mine now," he breathed. "Completely. Irrevocably. Mine. I know. And I'm yours. All of me. Good and bad. Legal and otherwise. You own me, Isabella, as much as I own you." The admission, raw and honest, settled something in my chest. This was what I'd been missing with Adrian. This intensity, this absolute certainty, this feeling of being chosen and choosing in return. "Then we're agreed," I said. "No more holding back. No more half measures. No more pretending this isn't forever," he added, his voice rough with emotion. "Forever is a long time. Not long enough." He kissed me again. "Not nearly long enough." The next morning, I woke to find Lorenzo already awake, watching me with an intensity that should have been unnerving but felt comforting instead. "What?" I asked sleepily. "Just memorizing this moment. You in my bed, sleep soft and beautiful. Mine. Possessive even in the morning. Especially in the morning." He pulled me closer. "Every morning, Isabella. I want this every morning for the rest of our lives." It should have scared me, that level of commitment after such a short time. Instead, it felt inevitable. Like everything with Lorenzo had been leading here, to this moment, this choice, this future. "Then I guess you're stuck with me," I said. "Best thing that's ever happened to me." He kissed my forehead, then my nose, then my lips. Best thing I never knew I was waiting for. We lay there as morning light filled the room, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of my old life, building something new from the ashes. It wasn't conventional, wasn't safe, wasn't anything I'd planned. But it was ours, and that made it perfect. 6 months after that Christmas dinner I'd attended alone, I stood in Lorenzo's penthouse office, watching the city spread out below us like a kingdom. Our kingdom, now. I'd moved into Lorenzo's home 3 months ago, my apartment sitting empty, a symbol of a life I'd outgrown. "Penny for your thoughts," Lorenzo said, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. "Just thinking about how much has changed." "Regrets?" I leaned back against his chest, feeling the solid warmth of him. "Not one." It was true. The past months had been a revelation. Lorenzo had introduced me gradually to the reality of his world, the legitimate businesses and the operations that existed in shadows. I'd discovered I had a talent for seeing patterns, for strategic planning that translated well to his more clandestine endeavors. "You're thinking too loudly," he murmured against my ear. "I'm thinking about the meeting tomorrow, the Constantine brothers." "Worried?" "Curious. You said you wanted me there, but I'm not sure what role I'm playing." Lorenzo turned me in his arms to face him. "The same role you've always played. My partner, my strategist, the woman who sees solutions where others see problems. Your world is different from the office, Lorenzo. I know, which is why I need you there." His hands cupped my face. "Isabella, I trust you with everything. My business, my life, my weaknesses. You've proven yourself loyal, intelligent, and ruthless when necessary. The Constantines need to understand that you're not just my woman. You're my equal." The statement should have terrified me. Instead, it thrilled me. I'd spent years as Adrian's wife feeling diminished, ignored, taken for granted. With Lorenzo, I felt powerful, seen, essential. "What if I make a mistake?" I asked, voicing the fear I'd been harboring. "Then we handle it together." Lorenzo's smile was confident. "But you won't. You're too smart, too careful, and you have something no one else in that room will have." "What's that?" "Me. Absolutely devoted to keeping you safe while you shine." He kissed me softly. "They'll underestimate you because you're beautiful, because you're with me, because you're a woman in a world of violent men. Use that. Let them think you're decorative while you dissect their weaknesses." The strategy was sound, and the next day I deployed it perfectly. The meeting with the Constantine brothers was tense, a negotiation over territory and profit sharing that could have ended in bloodshed. I sat quietly at Lorenzo's side, appearing to take notes, while actually cataloging every micro-expression, every tells, every weakness. When the older brother, Mikhail, made an aggressive demand, I leaned forward. "Forgive me for interrupting, but I think there's a solution neither side has considered." The room went silent. Mikhail's eyes narrowed. "And what would a secretary know about our business?" "I'm not a secretary anymore," I said calmly. "I'm Lorenzo's partner, and I know that what you're really concerned about isn't the territory itself, but access to the port facilities, which Lorenzo controls. So rather than fighting over land, why not negotiate access? Lorenzo gets to maintain ownership, you get shipping privileges, everyone profits." The room stayed silent for a beat. Then Mikhail laughed, a genuine boom of amusement. "She's smart, Volkov. Dangerous too, I'd wager." "Extremely," Lorenzo agreed, pride evident in his voice. The negotiation concluded smoothly after that, my suggestion providing the compromise both sides needed. As we left, Lorenzo's hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Brilliant," he murmured, "just seeing patterns. You dismantled a potential war in 5 sentences." He pulled me into an empty hallway, kissing me deeply. "You're magnificent," but not everyone was pleased with my new role. Back at the office, I found Nicolette waiting with a concerned expression. "We need to talk," she said, leading me to the break room. "There's resistance to you taking an active role. Some of Lorenzo's associates think you're a liability. Because I'm a woman, because you're untested in their world, haven't proven you can handle the darkness." Nicolette's expression was sympathetic. "Lorenzo trusts you, but they need convincing. Then I'll convince them. It might require you to get your hands dirty, Isabella, to do things that can't be undone." I met her gaze steadily. I know what I signed up for. The test came sooner than expected. Adrian, who'd been blessedly quiet for months, resurfaced with a vengeance. He'd apparently been gathering information, talking to reporters, building a case against Lorenzo that threatened to expose operations we'd worked hard to keep hidden. He's become a liability, Lorenzo said one evening, his voice cold. One I need to handle permanently. What do you mean permanently? I asked, though I suspected I knew. I mean he's threatening everything we've built, everything we are. Lorenzo's eyes were hard. He needs to disappear, Isabella. And I need to know if you can accept that. This was it. The moment where I either committed fully to this life or drew a line I couldn't uncross. I thought about Adrian, his betrayal, his continued attempts to hurt me through Lorenzo. Thought about the life we were building, the future we were creating. What do you need from me? I asked. Something flickered in Lorenzo's eyes. Surprise, pride, relief. I need you to lure him to a meeting. Tell him you have information about me, that you want to cooperate with his investigation. Get him to the warehouse on 5th Street tomorrow night. And then? Then I handle it. But Isabella, once you do this, there's no going back. You'll be complicit, an accessory. The law won't distinguish between us. I know. My voice was steady. I'll do it. I made the call that night, my voice perfectly pitched between nervous and eager. Adrian agreed immediately, thinking he'd finally broken me, finally found the weapon he needed against Lorenzo. The next evening, I dressed carefully, wearing a wire that Lorenzo's people had equipped me with, driving to the warehouse alone as instructed. Adrian was already there, his expression triumphant. Isa, I knew you'd come to your senses. That man is dangerous. I know he is, I said truthfully. That's why I need your help. What Adrian didn't know was that the entire conversation was being recorded, that Lorenzo's lawyers would use his admission of attempting to extort information to bury him legally. And what Adrian definitely didn't know was that Lorenzo and his men were positioned around the warehouse, ensuring that this meeting would be Adrian's last. I won't detail what happened next. Some darkness is better left in shadow. But I will say that I walked out of that warehouse changed, complicit, irrevocably bound to Lorenzo not just by love, but by shared secrets that could never be spoken. Lorenzo found me in the car afterward, shaking despite my efforts to stay composed. He pulled me into his arms, holding me as I processed what I'd just done, what I'd become. I'm sorry, he murmured. Sorry you had to be part of that. I chose it, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Chose you, all of you. You're mine now, he breathed, in ways that can never be undone. I know. I pulled back to meet his eyes. And you're mine. We're bound together now, Lorenzo, for better or worse. Definitely for better, he said, kissing me softly. Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me, Isabella, even if I dragged you into darkness to keep you. The months that followed were transformative. I became known in Lorenzo's world, not as his decorative companion, but as his most trusted advisor, the woman who could negotiate with enemies, spot betrayal before it bloomed, and make hard decisions without flinching. Our wedding was small, private, attended only by Lorenzo's most trusted associates and my few remaining friends who'd accepted what I'd become. I wore cream instead of white, acknowledging that I was no innocent bride, and Lorenzo's eyes held such fierce possession as I walked toward him that several guests shifted uncomfortably. You're sure about this? He asked as we stood before the officiant. Last chance to run. I'm not running, I said firmly. I'm choosing. Choosing you, choosing this life, choosing us. Then you're mine, he said, sliding the ring onto my finger. Forever. And you're mine, I countered. Don't forget that part. Never, he promised. The reception was elegant. Dangerous, a gathering of powerful people who operated in shadows. I moved through it with confidence, Lorenzo's hand always at my back, accepting congratulations from people who'd once questioned my place in this world. Later that night, alone in Lorenzo's penthouse, our penthouse now, he undressed me slowly, reverently. Mrs. Volkov, he murmured, the name a caress. How does it feel? Right, I admitted. Terrifying and right. That's how loving me should feel. He kissed me deeply. Terrifying, because of what it means. Right, because we were meant for this. We made love slowly, cementing our vows, binding ourselves together in ways that went beyond legal or criminal. When we finally lay exhausted in each other's arms, Lorenzo traced patterns on my bare shoulder. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. That Christmas dinner, the choices you made, the woman you've become? I thought about that night 6 months ago, sitting alone on a park bench, crying over a betrayal that had felt world-ending. Thought about the woman I'd been then, scared and lost and convinced she was alone. Not for a second, I said honestly. That night destroyed my old life, but it gave me this one. Gave me you. Gave me power and purpose, and a partnership I never knew I wanted. Even knowing what you know now, what we do, who we really are, especially knowing that. I turned to face him. I'm not naive anymore, Lorenzo. I see you clearly. All the darkness, all the violence, all the decisions that would horrify most people. And I choose it anyway. Choose you anyway. Because what we have is real in a way my marriage never was. I love you, he said simply. More than I thought I was capable of loving anything. I love you too, even though you're possessive, controlling, and occasionally terrifying. Especially because of that, he corrected with a smile. Yes, I agreed, especially because of that. We fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd found each other in darkness and built something fierce and unbreakable in the shadows. It wasn't the life I'd planned, wasn't conventional or safe or anything I'd imagined for myself. But it was ours. Built on truth and choice, and the understanding that sometimes the best love stories begin not with rescue, but with recognition. Lorenzo hadn't saved me that night in the park. He'd simply seen me, all of me, and decided I was worth waiting for. And I'd seen him in return, all his darkness and devotion, and decided he was worth choosing. 6 months ago, I'd been abandoned at a Christmas dinner, alone and heartbroken. Now I stood at the center of an empire, feared and respected, Lorenzo's partner in every sense of the word. Some people might call that a fall from grace. I called it rising to where I'd always belonged, in the arms of a man who saw my strength and never asked me to dim it, building a kingdom in the shadows that was entirely our own. The end and the beginning.